about Bitcoin? Okay. And how many of you saw the last lecture? Okay. So I'll have some repetition at the start. Try to frame it a bit differently. Yeah, I'll wait until my brother starts before the presentation officially starts. Well, I'll just start now. So, this talk is going to be about society unchained. So we're trying to, in the last talk I talked about Bitcoin 1.2, 1.1, Bitcoin 2.0 and Bitcoin 3.0, and this will go more into Bitcoin 3.0. So I'll do a short repetition of the things I did in the last talk, just in a different way, and then my brother will expand upon this to talk beyond currency and more about how do we build a society. So, Bitcoin and beyond. It's the title of. I'm going to. I just started. Oh, sorry, that's practical things. Oh. Well, that's the introduction at least.
Do we need to start now?
Well, we started the talk, just introduce anyway. So this is the third talk on the P2P track on FSCONS in Gothenburg in 2015. And it's Christian and Manuel Lains will continue. This is the second part of their talk. And also you can ask questions during the talk. If you have something you wonder about, you can raise your hand and ask questions. And I'll come around with the microphone and you can talk into the microphone so we also get it on the tape. Okay? Right, continue.
So, in this talk I'm going to talk about Bitcoin and beyond. So, essentially in this talk I'll repeat what I said in the last lecture about Bitcoin 1.0 as a currency, Bitcoin 2.0 as crypto finance, and Bitcoin 3.0 which goes beyond finance. And after that my brother Manuel will talk about the things that go beyond finance, into how do we build a society with this type of technology and what kinds of principles do we need to think about. But first I want to mention the three aspects of Bitcoin. So I know most of you have heard about Bitcoin. But Bitcoin can refer to many different things. It can refer to the blockchain, which is the medium of exchange. It can refer to the currency, which is used as transfer inside this medium of exchange. And it can refer to the ecosystem as a whole, so the general cryptocurrency space. And it's within this space that we get this division between Bitcoin 1.0, 2 and 3. So just briefly, Bitcoin 1, cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is essentially a means of paying. It's a currency, it's an internet currency, so now it's as easy to send money as it is to send email. And you don't have to rely on a central authority like Visa or PayPal or banks or things like this. It's directly person to person. There are many clones of Bitcoin with their own distinct qualities. So Litecoin is supposed to be the silver to Bitcoin's gold, for many metaphors. Dogecoin is supposed to be like a meme community coin. And Dash is a privacy coin, so they work hard to enable anonymous transfers. Prime coin is used to compute pi, so they try to find larger and larger prime numbers. Kanye coin, of course, Kanye West, the celebrity. So he tried to shut this coin down actually, but we'll see in the future if it reappears. So Bitcoin 2.0 is basically crypto finance. It's more generalized. It's decentralized, cryptographically secure finance. And as I said, any online transaction of value can now be decentralized in a trustless manner without any controlling authority in the middle. And the example I want to give here is the BitShares exchange. So the BitShares exchange enables decentralized exchange. You can trade, it's not just the cryptocurrency, it goes beyond this to offer other financial instruments. So you have, of course, cryptocurrencies, but you also have things like smart coins that are pegged to real-world assets. So they track the value of real-world things like gold, oil, dollar, silver. It could be anything. And then you can trade these coins, of course, just like Bitcoin. So it has all the benefits, but also this price stability if you're talking about fiat currencies, but speculative value with gold and stocks and other things. You also have user-issued assets that you can issue yourself. So you can use this exchange and just click a few buttons and you have your own coin. That's kind of cool. But these coins can be used for many different things, for crowdfunding, for all types of things. Could be keys, could be anything. You also have private and public equities, so big companies can issue their stocks on such an exchange, and then it will be traded as freely as all of these other things. So the end goal here is an exchange where you can trade basically anything for anything else, and it's free and open to everyone in the world. And it's a very low fee, and fast and secure, and basically everything you want. So it's the next generation exchange technology. Bitcoin 3.0 goes beyond finance. So there's the definition by Melanie Swan. Bitcoin 3.0 is blockchain applications beyond currency, finance, and markets, particularly in the areas of government, health, science, literacy, culture, and art. So there's a wide variety of use cases. The example I would use here is decentralized voting. So Follow My Vote, as I see it, solved the problem of e-voting. It's been very difficult to solve this problem. The problem is, how do we vote remotely on the internet while being able to verify that your vote was cast as you intended it, and how do we still keep anonymity? So basically this is one kind of solution. The next part of my part of the presentation is decentralized consensus. So this is a more general description of what blockchain technology is. So the blockchain is essentially a public ledger, and if you want to record some information and you want everyone to agree on what the information is, you can encode it in a blockchain, and it will be completely irreversible. So everyone in the world can agree, even though no one particular person is in control, about the truth of the data stored in the system. And the data could be anything, right? It could be a vote, it could be identity, it could be your reputation, your bank account, basically anything. And here I want to focus on the organizational entities that the blockchain makes possible. So we have various types of new decentralized organizations. We have decentralized autonomous company, so we have companies that are completely decentralized. We have just decentralized applications, so yeah, and, decentralized autonomous platforms, decentralized autonomous organizations, decentralized autonomous societies. The list goes on and on in this, about these new kinds of systems that are possible when a wide variety of people all over the world can come to an agreement about the state of the system. And in this talk I want to focus on decentralized autonomous company, because this is the easiest thing to explain, I think. So it has, like the other, decentralized and autonomous. There's three parts: decentralized, autonomous, and company. So what is decentralization to distribute the powers or functions of a central authority over a less concentrated area. What is autonomy? Self-governance, independence, subject to its own laws. What is a company? A number of persons united or incorporated for joint action, especially for business. So this is a bit abstract, and I'll try to make it more concrete. So this slot machine is a great concrete example, because although it is centralized, it at least satisfies two of the three things. It is an autonomous company. So why is it autonomous? Because it has its own rules encoded inside the system. And why is it a company? Well, it has costs, it has income, and it has a profit. So if we would just decentralize this thing with blockchain technology, if we would put this inside the database that everyone can agree on, then we will have a decentralized autonomous company. So of course, how does it work? It has costs associated with it, and it has income from the discrepancy between what you put in and what you get out. And it gets a profit by the relation between these two. So income is more than the cost, of course. You get a profit, right? But now we want to decentralize it with blockchain technology. So we put it online in a giant database, the blockchain, which is irreversible. And if you go to this type of machine, you can't really see what's going on inside it. You can't see if it's fair. It's very localized. There are many problems with this machine. But if you decentralize it, you can have it spread all over the world, so you can create the greatest lottery ever. That's just one example of the things you can do. So that's a decentralized autonomous company and a way that it works. But how does it work? How is this blockchain? How is the consensus reached on the state of this database? In Bitcoin, you have proof of work. There are other coins that have proof of stake. So proof of work is basically you use the computing cycles on your computer to secure the network. And here you have proof of stake. You essentially vote with your money on who gets to decide on the state of the system. And delegated proof of stake is a version of proof of stake. And I will focus on delegated proof of stake because I think voting and an organizational structure like this, it's easy to see how wide it can be applied. So of course it's a kind of decentralization of power, but who gets the power in the system? If we have some sort of database that is processing transactions, it has costs associated with this, it has all these complicated things that have to be done. How does the system come to an agreement? How does the decentralization decide on different things? So in delegated proof of stake, you have three different roles. You have committee members who can upgrade the code that is running, or the code that the platform is running. You have the witnesses who sign or verify the state of the system. And you have workers who can be hired by the system itself to do all kinds of things. It could be speaking, or it could be marketing, it could be working on new applications on the platform, or it could be research, it could be anything. And the people who have the stake in the system can vote for these different roles. So what's happening now on a broad scale is that the blockchain, the Bitcoin community, and what has evolved beyond it, has reinvented a form of democracy, or in this case, shareitocracy. So they're trying to find ways to distribute power while still being able to make decisions. So that's because if the power is not sufficiently decentralized, then of course various authorities, either big companies or big governments, can just shut it down. So it has to be sufficiently decentralized. But when you have money in this platform, you can self-fund development. You don't need to rely on Visa or PayPal or MasterCard. For instance, WikiLeaks is a project you may know about. They were blocked by Visa and MasterCard. And this is the risk you're running if you don't have an autonomous money system in your platform. Then you can simply be shut down by the existing powers. So the sources of income for a system could be income from transaction fees, income from capital appreciation, or simply issuing new shares, issuing new coins. And this can pay for all kinds of development and whatever the stakeholders decide to vote on. So workers and witnesses can do all of these things. So example again, B-Shares Exchange, as I talked about in the beginning, which is this grand vision to enable exchange for everyone all over the world to transact any kind of value with each other, including stocks and derivatives and everything. But it has to exist on a platform, right? It has to exist on a decentralized, autonomous platform. And the reason it has a company is because it has expenses, right? It has some expenses associated with these transactions and everything. And the cost of the people who verify the transactions and the workers who work with this need somehow to be paid autonomously by the system, or it wouldn't be autonomous, right? It has to be a completely autonomous system that doesn't rely on other power structures that exist in the world. And this is the only way, I think, to create a decentralized exchange of this magnitude, to make it be completely self-reliant, so that the people who have the shares in the system can vote for various functions. Example 2 is pair tracks. Some of you were in the last lecture and heard about pair tracks. This is also essentially, at least at the back end, an autonomous platform that revolutionizes how the music industry works. And this thing also has to be decentralized and autonomous, because it has to be resistant to censorship, to attack from governments, to attack from perhaps the music industry who doesn't like this system. It has to be completely self-reliant. And this is also a type of company. It gets income from fees and the cost of witnesses and workers again. So it's the same kind of platform, a completely different use case, and yet it's completely self-governed and autonomous. So I think this is the important bit, though, that nobody is in control. They really learned their lesson, that if someone is in control, if there's someone somewhere that the big powers that now exist can attack or shut down, they will do it. So we have to spread it sufficiently across many different people all over the world. So my brother will now talk more broadly about society on a blockchain. So I just talked about the blockchain-based things, but he will go broader into how do we create a whole society.
Okay, I don't have all the answers. I have some ideas on what we need to think about when we want to build a society based on these technologies that we have presented in the last lecture, and also what Christian talked about now, especially decision-making tools for or being able to organize efficiently a distributed set of people around the world. So it's not going to be very specific, it's going to be more like exploring ideas. So I thought that we'd start at what do we actually want in our humans. I know something we want, at least internet, what is it called? Netizens. We like the freedom of speech. We like privacy. And also, something that people have always liked is to have some kind of protection from malicious actors, to don't get robbed. And in the new anarchy, we can't just let go of that idea that we want to live in a safe world. Freedom of association, this is a little bit more new, I think. Not everybody agrees with it, but there is a big voluntarist movement now, especially on the internet among the internet libertarians. We would like to choose ourselves if we think our government is good enough or if we want to use something else. It's not only about one government package you have to take to leave it. We can also split it up and have different functionality in different ways. And Bitcoin is a good example because people just start using Bitcoin as money, and that's their choice. It's a voluntary choice, and it's not connected to where you live, the government you're the property of. So, a better tomorrow. We want something that is better than what we have today. We don't want change just for the sake of change. We want to ensure that it's going to lead to something better. We would like to see a new governance model and new business paradigm. I think a lot of people agree on it. A lot of people are not happy with how the state is running things, if it's efficient. Banks is in bed with state, so it's like private and public sector is hated just as much. Basically we want something better, I think, most of us. So already you have internet-based societies. The biggest ones probably exist in the centralized institutions and businesses, like Facebook, for example. That's a huge society. But we are basically on the whim of one person who can decide what to do with our information and how to develop the system. But we have internet-based societies, and we have a choice, and we can go other places. And we are used to organizing across borders with people in every part of the world. That came with the internet, and in that sense, we already have freedom of association. So what do cryptocurrencies and cryptography bring? We can have freedom of communication. We can communicate privately. We can encrypt our communication. With cryptocurrencies, we can also transfer value without fear of being censored. So we get some kind of freedom from that. And also anonymity in some cases. If we want, we can use systems which provide anonymity. So what is the rest? What do we need to build a society? Now we get into the flesh of the nature. I'm going to go into a few areas that I think we need to think about. One is identity. That's a big issue. I'll get more into that. We want to preserve our life. We want to be safe. We need food. We need to survive. We want security. I think we also want prosperity. And that means that we need to have an efficient economic system. Property has shown to be good for development. I guess there are some, there can be differing views on that, but the free market won against the communism. So I'm going to list it as a good thing for now. We can talk more about it. So yeah, and science, technology, and education need to be organized. So with identity, traditional identities, all this stuff, you know, this real world stuff. Your name, your address, citizenship, which country you belong to, birth information, birth date, where you're born, who your parents are, biometric data is coming, DNA maybe. We're going to start making databases of our DNA. There are other things to think about. Well, the DNA, biometric data is very scary right now because we don't want governments to have a database of everything. But now there are ways of using one-way cryptography to prove that you are somebody, but it cannot work the other way, that they can see who it was that proved that he had certain rights. You also have some way of proving that people are human, that is proving that a person or an entity is human. Somebody wants to use a service that can be useful. And this is already being used to prevent spam capture. You can have a system where you want to prove that the person only signs up with you, not with other services. You can only, the person can only sign up once. There can be reasons why you want such a system. And you need to come up with some kind of proof. And then you have this type of identity, which is very common now. You have pseudonym that you use in different services, and often reputation-based. And it can be a character in a game, or it can be a role, or it can be a nick on the forum. Yeah. Maybe we need to think about this after some time as well. Not yet. So, what are the parts of identity? You have the entity to be identified. It can be a human, or it can even be an item on the Internet of Things. Something that should be identified, and then you have the virtual presence, which can be, in our society, we have the legal person, that's us. If we are not illegal immigrants, then we are a legal person, we are allowed to be, so to speak. And that contains all this information that we talked about in traditional identity. And then you have the other type, like Indian character or pseudonym, and there are a lot of other ways to, a lot of other types of identity you can think of. And how do you verify the identity? Nowadays, a lot of use cases, there is a weak password or a bit stronger password, but it's a single factor security, which is very weak in many ways. It can be hacked. If they cannot guess your password, there might be ways to monitor your system. Or it's a very weak point of our identities. We cannot rely on being recognized as the person we are, or everything we own, or all the rights we have down to a single password. We need to make it stronger. And there are some ideas how we can do it. For example, there's something called network of trust, or web of trust, which means that you are identified by the connections that you have around you. So that's kind of emulating how society works. I mean, you have your family, you have friends who know who you are. That's always something you can fall back to if government suddenly comes and say that you don't exist. What are you doing here? And then you have this one, which I think is very interesting, is one-way cryptography to prove that you have the rights to have without. You have a public key to your DNA, so to speak, on the public blockchain, and it shows that this public key has certain rights. But you cannot go from that to finding out what your DNA is. It's just a hash. It's a random number. If So my brother who has some similar DNA to me would have a completely different hash. It would have nothing to do with it. And I've seen there's some attempts at doing this. And it's not easy. It has to take into account that you will have small mutations and it cannot be like very strict. It needs to be smart. And there is work on this, and I think it's very interesting, specifically for some of the use cases I'm going to get into eventually now. So I think I went through this one, information that is associated. It's kind of like extended identity. It's not the identity, but it's information that you have connected to your identity. You have rights, and that's where I think it gets interesting. If you want to have a system where you are identified so you can get, for example, voting rights, you need to be sure that this is not a person who has 1,000 accounts and wants to vote 1,000 times. And especially when it comes to basic income, which I think is feasible on a blockchain, then you need to know that the person who receives this receives it only once. Otherwise it can be exploited. And of course with property, money, you want to be sure that you don't lose all your money. And your land, your items, virtual land, decentralized Minecraft or something where you have the land.
One point about property, I'll just ask from the audience. Property can actually be many different things, and it can be shared also. It can be shared among a group of people, or a geographic location, like the villagers sharing the water supply for that area, for instance. Or it could be even everybody as a common property. And it could be regulated in, you can do this and this and this, but you can't do that because that hurts somebody else or whatever.
Yeah, it's really interesting because this is all programmatic. You can program any type of concoction of conditions to how you can control this stuff. For example, in businesses, you have very simple structures of ownership or control that can be used. For example, if you have a CEO, can maybe have access to the funds himself, or you need maybe 3 other people to agree, or all these 3 people plus the CEO, right? You can make all these kind of permutations of access, and then they all have their keys, and it's all encoded in the blockchain. So the possibilities are limitless for what you can do. Especially when you have the ID associated, then you can really get interested. Because then you can also give some rights to everyone. It means that anyone who signs up will automatically get these rights just by signing up, because you come in, you provide value to the system. The system can give something back to you. I'll get more into that as well. There's some work on identity on blockchain. We have a project called Name Idea, which is based on Namecoin. Namecoin is a DNS system, actually, a distributed DNS system. But there is a project called Name ID, which combines Namecoin and OpenID to use this as an identity system. So it could be used, for example, to log in. Instead of using your Gmail ID, you could use your OpenID, which I would prefer if I could use it everywhere. That would be a strong preference to know that I control my ID myself. It's not that Google can. Well, I trust Google for now, but I don't know if it should be trusted in the future. Some almighty centralized power. And there are also attempts at traditional. This is just something I found. I haven't read too much about it, but they're making a cryptography-based ID card, which is more like a traditional identity, but using Bitcoin to secure it. But there's a lot of work to be done here. I mean, this is just some very simple examples. And then there's Identibit, which is a BitShares clone, actually, where they are specifically targeting anti-money laundering and rules, so the blockchain can report automatically. So it's designed to be friendly to the establishment. So, and it can also connect your identity in a more standardized way, so to speak, that the governments will understand. Okay, so how do you secure life? We need food. We need food production. Everybody needs food, and we cannot just tear down everything and expect to be fed. We need to build these systems before we take over. So now you have cryptocurrencies. You can have value transfer directly between producer and customer, or distribution parts of the chain. So I know one project which Mira will talk about later, which is Open Food Network. I think it's gonna match well with cryptocurrencies eventually. You need shelter, so you'll have to have a land, or you have to have access to land. You have to have some property or access to property, have a place to sleep. So, but what if you have no money? What if you have nothing? You want to rely on charity, or is there any other way of dealing with that? And that's what I think that will be the killer application with decentralized society. That's what's going to make it better than what we have. That's what's going to make users flock into the new organizations. That is a basic income. With BitShares technology, for example, you already have the ability to code in that a certain type of roles will automatically get new money that is printed. So you can have a system where you print money, and instead of printing money and giving it to banks, you print money and you just give it directly to people. Why not? It's every new user of a system increases the value of the system. So giving nothing back to the user is actually terribly unfair, even if you think strictly of the fairness requirement. And then on top of that comes people are fundamentally altruistic. We want to help. We vote for governments that provide social welfare. So why not do this in a voluntary fashion? Okay, I think I basically said that. So, but yeah, we need to find out ways to prevent exploitation. That's, I think, the major hurdle for this. Proof of individual, that's one way. We could also have it non-exclusive in a way that people could join several different associations and get something from each. And then you would have some kind of proof of attention or proof of effort to show how much you dedicate yourself to this system. It can be a partial, it doesn't have to be you choose only one. I haven't developed these things. It's just ideas. I don't know how feasible they are, but I think they're very interesting. As I said, a lot of ideas here. So we'll end up with voluntary socialism in an anarcho-capitalist ecosystem. Socialism meets capitalism. So far, there are very few projects. There is one, basicincome.co. I don't know how real it is. It's partially connected to the BitNation project, which talks about a lot of stuff, a lot of interesting things. I cannot endorse BitNation because I don't know if they're actually doing what they're saying, but I can say that their ideas are definitely very interesting and groundbreaking. So that's a decentralized application on the BitNation blockchain. So maybe there will be more. We need healthcare. How can we deal with that in a voluntary fashion? We can have direct funding, crowdfunding to fix certain things. Maybe we want to eradicate cancer. Everybody crowdfunds. Wish we have billions of dollars or whatever. Maybe. The technology allows more do-it-yourself healthcare. People can do things themselves because the information is readily available. So you can unload professionals with the simple things. So we can focus their knowledge to the more demanding scenarios. This is very strongly connected to science because healthcare is very dependent on medicine research. And there's a separate topic. Yeah, community health insurance. You can have a health insurance built into the society. People just decide when they join, are they willing to pay for other people to have healthcare? Maybe. That's what we do now.
You could also connect this to Japanese robot technology.
Yeah.
When many people getting older and they need help, maybe help to stay in their homes instead of going to a sick home. And then they could have robots, helping them in their home. And the robots could be incorporated and getting paid, or be part of the system.
Yeah, they can be decentralized autonomous robots, or something like that. Driven directly by the community and funded by the community. So the possibilities are limitless here as well. Security, that's the little bit touchy subject. BitNation, talking about armies or vigilantes. I really like that idea, it's so cool. But I mean, we need to think about it, how we're going to do it. Neighborhood watch is definitely innocent. Just have some people running around and if they see something, call the cops. But what about when we get to the point where we don't have a centralized government, we don't have a centralized police force? Maybe we need to think about that. But let's leave it for now, because it's government's turf, as it is now. So, prosperity. What can we do now that we couldn't do before? Making finance more efficient, smart contract, everything that my brother talked about just now. Proof of ownership to property on the blockchain can be something as simple as taking a photo of yourself, putting it on the internet, or first hashing it, putting it on the blockchain. They have a private key. You prove that you have this item at that point in time. It's called proof of existence. You can do it with a document to prove that this document existed at this point in time. You can use it for copyright, for example, to show that you actually, not copyright, but credit rights, I think I call it, to show that you actually created it. Science can also be crowdfunded. Instead of having forced taxes to fund research, which has the danger of being politically controlled. It can instead be funded by the public, and the will of the people would be perfectly represented because they would channel the money where they want to see the research being done. Communities or companies fund the research they want directly instead of lobbying, playing this dirty politics game. So I think we will see a renewal of academia and so technology, education as well. I have to hurry up a bit here, I see. Governance. Voting on blockchain is something that is coming. It's already, there is Follow My Vote, which is an American company who have developed a white paper and a system of how to vote safely on the blockchain, which gives transparency and privacy at the same time. And you have other philosophies of how to govern, like holacracy, which is a distributed governance, bottoms up instead of top down, hierarchic. Others could say more about that. I heard about it through BitNation, but I was also made aware that there are other projects like Backfeed on Ethereum. which are investigating this. I'm not going to say too much more about it. Almost out of time. So, basically, we need to fund human achievements. That's the prosperity part. How will we explore the solar system? How will we build new worlds? Explore the frontiers of science? Or discover the mysteries of our past? We cannot be restrained by those who propose to decide. We need to empower the individuals, and we need to make sure that our will is represented. And I think it's going to happen. Yeah, that's me. And that's who we are, me and Christian. We are BitSpace, because we started up this year. We are going to build a community. It's just us, but we have people that are partners, that we're partnered with, for example, Follow My Vote. And we are talking to a lot of different people about what we can do together to build the future. And BitGate, which is our first concrete project, we want to try to establish a gateway to BitShares in Norway. So.
Any questions or comments? Yes, I'll come to you with the mic.
Alright, so after Ken's talk earlier, I sort of feel inclined to ask, what would you envision as the most likely, maybe, way of using the blockchain for evil? And I don't necessarily mean these like stereotypical funding of terrorists or anything like that, but how would the blockchain be used to maintain the current system of few interest parties controlling?
To maintain it?
Yes.
I don't think it's going to work, because I think we have been here before when the internet was about to break through. Some telecommunication companies tried to start their own private internet, like America Online, CompuServe. They just couldn't keep up with internet. Bitcoin is global, it's open to everyone. Every small guy can participate, and that's the most powerful force, I think. When it comes to Bitcoin can be used for evil, or blockchains can be used for evil, I think there are some dystopian scenarios. For example, you could build a
assassination market,
prediction market for who's going to die. That's very scary.
Yeah.
So, but I think that blockchain technology is not the most dangerous thing to have happened to humanity. I mean, I think nuclear weapons and stuff are much, much more dangerous. And if you want to keep nuclear weapons in check, would you like it to be done by a decentralized world, or would you like it to be kept in check by a small number of power people discussing which country to fuck up next, you know?
More questions or comments? If not, okay, there's one. Okay.
Yes, but to say coming from...
I'll come to you with the
There is some collaboration I heard between the big patient project and the small, at least embryo to a new kind of somewhat to say an anarcho-capitalist state of Liberland at the border between Serbia and Croatia.
Oh yeah,
where they kind of can test these systems on kind of area where there is nothing else at the moment. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really intrigued by Liberland. In fact, we talked about this Adam in Follow My Vote. He went to visit those guys and talked about how to develop a governing system, because they're like starting from scratch, so they don't have any baggage when it comes to what systems to employ. But about BitNation, did you say that they're involved?
Well, there are connections. At least the founder of BitNation, she wants to that systems to be applied at Heberland. I don't know if they have agreed or if there might be different.
As I said, I'm very interested in the ideas of BitNation. I just, as any of the project you see popping up in crypto space, you have to be careful because there are so many scams, and I've seen a lot of accusations against BitNation that they don't actually do what they say they're doing. But I don't know about it. I'm just being a little bit careful to endorse it. But I really like their ideas, and I believe that there must be some ideologists among them.
Okay, next question.
It's more like comments. I hate to be the skeptic here, but it sounds a little bit too good to be true.
Yeah.
Or more like too good to work in the real world we live in.
Yeah.
For example, when you say science being crowdfunded,
Yeah.
would that really work?
I think it will.
How? I mean, I mean.
Would you donate to science?
Yeah,
You would.
Yeah,
why not other people?
Because I don't think, for most people, I mean, okay, you need, say you want a cure for cancer.
Yeah.
That could take 50 years.
Yes.
And it would take a lot of money.
Yes.
Would you be able to convince the masses to give money over a period of 50 years, maybe 100 years, without seeing the results?
Yeah. When it comes to cancer, there are people who give regularly to send part of their salary every month to cure cancer. I mean, what you could do here is that you could make the whole process open. You could lock the funds, like a bounty to whoever finds out. I mean, it would be much more secure. You would be absolutely sure that the money reaches who it's supposed to reach. So, let's try to find statistics of how much money people give to cancer in the world, right? And you gather all this in the pot and you channel it in the right place. That's a cure for cancer, I think.
Okay.
And then look at, instead, aside to that, how much of the money comes from tax. And you will see that tax is 9 times as much as charity.
Exactly.
Then you have a small problem here, because you will raise only 1/10 of the money you need.
Yeah, well, this is supposed to replace taxes. Taxes is probably, it's inefficient, I think. It's like you take $2 notes and you give out 1 to the people. That's taxes.
You could have an intermediate solution, which is that you require people to pay a certain amount, almost like tax. So that's similar to tax. But people can decide themselves where that money goes, to what kind of service receives the money. So that would be the voluntary part of it.
Yeah, and I would also like to say that it's very hard to predict the future. So for instance, before Wikipedia was possible, nobody would have imagined that they would replace all the encyclopedias of the world without any money being involved. Like, there was very little donations involved. The people who produced the articles did it basically just as a hobby. And imagine what's possible when you supplement this cognitive surplus with internet cash or value transfers. I don't think we can imagine what will happen in 5, 10, 15 years from now. So common sense is not a very good guide to the future. If we see what has happened in the last 100 years, people who thought of common sense things didn't really understand. Couldn't have understood what happened 100 years later. So that's my perspective.
We're going to take a 6 minutes break, and then we continue with Open Food Networks.